Pokemon released in modern generations have a lot of privileges that older Pokemon did not have. Their stats are made with the physical special split in mind, they are typically given signature moves and/or abilities, and their design might also have a connection to a new generational gimmick, making them even stronger. But have you ever wondered how these Pokemon would be different if they didn't have those privileges? So in this video, I ask the question of, what if new Pokemon were released in early generations? This is the counterpart to the if old Pokemon were released today video I did recently, so make sure to go check that one out as well. Like that video, remember that this video is mostly a joke intended to poke fun at how weak and poorly designed a lot of early generation Pokemon were made to be. To be clear, I'll only be looking at Pokemon Gen 7 onward and will be theorizing how they would be different if they were released roughly in Gen 3 because I want to talk about abilities and double battles, and we can't go any earlier than that since that's when both of those mechanics were introduced. First, we have Zacian. Gen 8 Zacian Crowned was one of the most broken Pokemon of all time, and Game Freak really went out of their way to make sure that it was strong. In its Hero of Many Battles form, it's a pure fairy type with a base stat total of 670, and they're distributed ridiculously well, with high stats in all areas except for the attacking stat that it doesn't use. In its Crown Sword form, it gets 40 higher attack and 10 higher speed and gains the Steel typing, giving it the best dual typing in the game. This is obviously way too strong for an early generation Pokemon, so quite a few things would be different. The Fairy type doesn't exist yet, so it would instead be Psychic and Psychic Steel type. It would have the same base stat total, but they would instead be arranged as mixed attacking with lower speed, since early generations really liked making mixed attackers. Its ability Intrepid Sword that boosts attack on switch-in is way too powerful, so it would instead get Pressure, the go-to ability for early generation legendaries. Either that, or it would get Intrepid Sword, but it would just be a rename of Hyper Cutter. Its signature move Behemoth Blade isn't even that much better than Iron Head without the Dynamax gimmick, so I don't even really need to change that. Actually, let's make it a tad less accurate at 95% to mirror Sacred Fire and Aeroblast. This Zacian would pretty much just be a glorified Metagross. Next, we have Archaludon. Archaludon is kind of a freak of nature when you consider how powerful it is as just a regular non-legendary or pseudo-legendary Pokemon. It has the highest base stat total of any cross-generational evolution, a fantastic typing, great ability options, and a really good signature move, things that most DLC Pokemon are given. Back in the day where there's no such thing as DLC though, quite a few things about Archaludon would be different. First, it would maintain the 535 base stat total of its pre-evolution Duraludon and would just be rearranged, just like how Scizor has the same base stat total as Scyther. It would probably have the ability options of Keen Eye and Plus, and wouldn't have a third option since hidden abilities didn't exist yet. Either that, or Archaludon would have been given a 600 base stat total, but it would have a drawback ability to balance it out. Brittle causes the user to take double damage from contact moves, and that's it, no upside. It may have been given a signature move, but it would not have been at the level of Electro Shot and would probably just be something like what Charge Beam ended up being, a low power, not even 100% accurate electric type move with a chance to raise special attack by one stage, as opposed to the 130 base power, 100% accurate Electro Shot with a guaranteed chance to raise special attack that is a 2-turn charge move but can be bypassed in rain. Next, we have Gholdengo. As a Gen 9 Pokemon that's also the 1000th Pokemon overall, Gholdengo was given a lot of special treatment that it would absolutely not have been given if it were released in early generations. Starting with its typing, Steel Ghost is one of the best in the game that would have been the best in early generations because this was back when Steel still resisted Dark and Ghost. So, it would probably be Mono type, and if we were to choose one, it would definitely be Mono Steel given its whole design about being made of solid gold. It has quite a good base stat total and distribution, so both of these would definitely be worse, probably something like a 480 base stat total distributed like this, aka the Hoenn special, where you have high attack and special attack with low defense, special defense, and speed. Make It Rain would not be 120 base power and 100% accurate, and it would instead just be a rename of Payday. It would probably get Pickup as a reference to the fact that it picks up gold coins off the ground, or it would get Good as Gold, but it would be a Steel equivalent to the starter's abilities where it increases Steel move power in a pinch. In return, it would be easier to evolve since newer generations really like to make you work to evolve your Pokemon, whereas older generations keep it pretty simple with things like level up and evolution stones, so Gholdengo would evolve from Gimmighoul at level 30. Next, we have Chien-Pao. Despite only having been around for one generation, Chien-Pao is undoubtedly one of the best ice types in the game, and probably the single best ice type if you exclude restricted legendaries. This is because of its fantastic synergy of its typing, stats, ability, and move pool that allow it to be an incredible offensive threat, something that has not been the case for most ice types before it. So if it was released in early generations, it absolutely would have been built more defensively because early generations loved making defensive ice types. It would still have higher physical attack than special attack, which works terribly with its typing because Ice and Dark were both special types before the split in Gen 4. You might be thinking that Game Freak would never design a Pokemon this poorly, where both of its types are in the category of its lower attacking stat, but they gave Gengar higher special attack despite both Poison and Ghost being physical, so as much as I like to joke about this, this is definitely something that Game Freak would do. Like Zacian, it would probably get the ability Pressure, or Sword of Ruin would be different in that it lowers the attack of all surrounding Pokemon to make Chien-Pao work more defensively, but unlike Tablets of Ruin that works fine on Wo-Chien, this would include the user, so Chien-Pao would be weakened too. Next, we have Dondozo. I said in a previous video that Dondozo is basically just a straight up better version of Wailord in every single way, so I'm not even going to try to joke about it and will straight up say that Dondozo's stats would just be Wailord's. Dondozo already has 2 of the 3 same abilities as Wailord, Waterville and Oblivious, and those would be its only options, which are really underwhelming abilities since Oblivious doesn't block Intimidate yet. The main thing about Dondozo that would be different if it was released in early generations is its interaction with Tatsugiri. +2 in every stat that can be activated on switch-in that just makes the game a 1 vs 2 is insanely overpowered for early generations, so Tatsugiri's Commander would instead be Lieutenant, which is ranked below Commander, and it would just grant Dondozo a +1 attack and special attack boost while still making the game a 1 vs 2. I say this as a joke, but remember that Gen 3 introduced plus and minus on Plusle and Minun and expected that to be a good enough reason to use them together in a double battle. Tatsugiri would also only have one form, its curly form. Dondozo's signature move Order Up would be 60 base power instead of 80, and it would always grant a +1 attack boost despite Order Up being a special move, since this is before the physical special split and Dragon is special, kinda like how Ghost was physical but Shadow Ball had a chance to drop special defense. Next we have Incineroar. Everyone knows that this fire cat is the best competitive Pokemon of all time, but that's pretty much entirely due to it having the privilege of being released in a later generation. As a fire-type starter, it would only have access to Blaze, since like I said with Archaludon, hidden abilities don't exist yet. Just this one change is probably enough for Incineroar to completely plummet in usage, considering the fact that no one used it in Gen 7 before it got Intimidate. I think its stats are actually completely reasonable for an early gen Pokemon, since they are almost identical to Swampert, the Gen 3 water starter. What would be different is that it would be a fire fighting type instead of fire dark, because Game Freak loved making fire fighting starters. As a Pokemon that takes inspiration from a wrestler, Incineroar could easily pass as a fighting type. Because it's no longer dark, it would lose a lot of its relevant dark moves like Knockoff, which was introduced in Gen 3, and it wouldn't ever be able to learn Parting Shot when that gets introduced. Its signature move Darkest Lariat would instead be called Fightingest Lariat, and instead of being 85 base power, 100% accurate, and ignoring stat changes, it would be 80 base power, 90% accurate, deal recoil damage with no secondary effect. Next, we have Palafin. The Achilles heel ability archetype has been around for as long as abilities have been in the game, and Palafin's 0 to hero is really the only one that's usable. Palafin starts out in its 0 form and changes to its hero form when it switches out of battle, bumping up its 457 base stat total to 650. Once it transforms, it stays transformed for the remainder of the battle. It also gets Flip Turn to help with that, a stab pivoting move, and a signature priority move to spam once it transforms, Jet Punch, which is 60 base power. This is all way too good and functional for an early gen Pokemon, so a few things would be different. First, its stats when it transforms would be more mixed, and I know I've been saying that for a lot of the entries, but if you look at Pokemon from Gen 3, like half of them are built like this. 0 to hero would make it so that Palafin changes form every time it switches, so it can change back to its 0 form and make its stats worse again. If you're up against a Palafin in its hero form, you could Whirlwind or Dragon Tail it out to force it to transform back. Aqua Jet doesn't exist yet, so instead of getting a signature move Jet Punch, Palafin would just get Aqua Jet as its signature move one generation early. Wave Crash also doesn't exist yet, and Water is special, so it would pretty much just have Surf for its strongest stab move. Lastly, we have Dracovish. As I mentioned in a previous video, Dracovish and the other 3 Gen 8 fossils break the rule of fossil Pokemon needing to be Rock type, so it would obviously be Rock type if it was released in an early generation. The question is though, would it be Rock Water or Rock Dragon? Well, given that we already got a Rock Water fossil Pokemon with Kabutops from Gen 1, Dracovish would probably also be Rock Water since early generations had no issue with multiple Pokemon having the same dual typing, like how there were 4 lines of Rock Ground types and 4 lines of Ice Water types within the first 3 generations. Like Incineroar, its stats are fine and the only real change would be its ridiculously broken signature move, Vicious Rend. This move doubles in power if the user moves first and is a biting move that gets boosted by Dracovish's Strong Jaw. This is way too strong for an early generation move, and really all you gotta do is take away those 2 effects and have it just deal damage with no secondary effect and no way to increase that damage. Its existing move pool is fine since Dracovish is honestly completely carried by Vicious Rend, and it even learns a decent amount of rock moves, which is now its new stab type, so I don't even really have to change that. And those are some new Pokemon and how I theorized they would be different if they were released in early generations. Let me know what other Pokemon you think would be different if they were released back then. Anyway, if you want to support me and my channel, just leave a nice comment since I do read all comments. You can also become a member for 99 US cents a month to get a badge next to your name in early video access like all of these lovely people. If you want bonus content, check out my second channel Extra Bell, where I post videos I've scrapped from the main channel as well as more casual unscripted videos. Likes are also one of the ways that YouTube determines if a video should be passed around to more people, so if you feel that this video deserves to be, I would appreciate it. Thanks for watching.